This aircraft, there are 6 emergency exits.
Hello, everybody. This is Rod, your captain speaking. We are currently 30,000 feet in the air, and we haven't even left the airport. We just lit the joint. Just kidding, a little pilot humor there. We like to have fun. Our destination today is Casablanca, Morocco. So everyone, sit back, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for takeoff. We will be arriving in 6 hours.
Seven footers, welcome to another episode. Jarod Hector here. I am solo today. Jenna is not joining us, but I'm actually not alone because I have a special guest. First off, I want to thank you all for downloading, listening, doing what you usually do. You know where to find us at Seven Footers Podcast on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, at JS Hector, on all those same platforms. And I'm very pleased today because I'm joined by a special guest, Coach David Thorpe. And I've gotten to know David recently as Henry Abbott, and Judy Goodwin of the relaunched True Hoop Network have welcomed me as a daily guest on their show, Bring It In, which is fantastic. We do that every day, and you guys should be checking that out on the True Hoop Network. Great conversations with a variety of really smart and super interesting people. And Coach Thorpe is known as the Godfather of player development. He's worked with high school, college, pro players you know, Corey Brewer, Udonis Haslam, Kevin Martin, Joe Noah, many others. He's also the author of the book Basketball is Jazz. He's also a motivational speaker and the executive director of the Pro Training Center in his beloved home state of Florida, where I'm sure it's 25 degrees warmer than it is here. Coach, welcome to the Seven Footers Basketball Podcast.
Thank you, Jarod. I do appreciate it. And I'm glad you mentioned very quickly our podcast that we're appreciative that you're on every day. It's a different kind of pod. I was just on the phone with Henry 5 minutes ago. I think you gain a better appreciation for the NBA, even when we don't talk about the NBA, like today, because we're dealing with, like today we talked about oligarchs and, you know, with the guy from Moneyland, that there are some billionaires that are that. I don't know whether they got their money licitly or not, but we've had disease specialists on, and Daniel Coyle, of course, was amazing, and David Epstein was amazing, and then I interviewed Dwayne Casey, 10 days ago. So It's a nice mixture, and we're really thankful that you come on every day and you ask great questions.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. So I really wanted to have you on for a variety of reasons. As I've told you, I followed you from a writing standpoint since your ESPN days. And I, of course, love the way you talk about basketball because you know the game inside and out. And one of the things that you try to do, I've heard you say, and I've tried to do, and we'll get to that later, is when I watch basketball, and this is you talking, I don't watch the ball. I watch other things.
Yeah.
That is so hard to do. Like, it is literally hard to not watch the ball. I turn on games. I'm like, okay, David said not to watch the ball. So I'm turning my head the other way, and it's like my eyes keep pulling me back to where the action is. But I picked up some interesting things. So I want to talk about your basketball journey and how you became this godfather of player development. Now, you obviously played college or high school basketball. Did you play college too?
No, I played in high school. People thought I could have walked on. I went to Florida,
Yep.
and I was playing a lot of pickup with some really good players, and they thought I could have walked on. I didn't have that kind of love for it. But I want to say something about what you just said regarding not watching the ball. Before I was doing any kind of work at ESPN or whatever, I was just a basketball coach, right? And I used to go to Tampa Bay Buccaneer games with my dad. We had season tickets starting in 1976 when I was 11, our first year. I started going more frequently when I was 13, 14, 15. When my mom got smart and realized, what am I doing losing 8 hours on a Sunday at these stupid ass football games? And years and years of going, other than when I was in college, there was an older man sitting in front of us, directly in front of us. And I learned over time that he was a very talented offensive line coach for like a state power. And in fact, they honored him. I didn't even know what he did. So one day they honored him on the big screens because they just won a state championship. And he was the offensive line coach. And all he ever talked about was the line. And, over the NFL, these games are so slow and quite frankly, very boring to me. I gave it up many years ago. But we would talk between plays. And I learned how to watch the line. I played quarterback growing up until I was 14. But I didn't appreciate the game the way I did through his eyes. And so as a coach, I can't watch the ball. There's something inside of me that's screaming, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then I have to back it up and see what really happened. Obviously in the NBA, there's plenty of one-on-one game, and then you should be watching the ball. But even then I'm wondering, well, where was the help? And so when you started seeing what's happening away from the ball, it all kind of makes sense. So yeah, I can't watch it. Even when my son's playing, I tend to see what else is. I just try to see what's going on. You know,
Yeah.
there's 9 other dudes out there.
Yeah.
The Rockets are a little bit different. The Rockets just spread you out and let Harden and Westbrook play, so that's a little easier. But yeah. So the way things started is just kind of weird for me, Jarod. I never expected anything like this to happen. I graduated college in '87. I was going to go to grad school to study sports or industrial psychology. Sports psychology wasn't really a big field yet, but I thought it might be out in California. And but I was also offered I've never really been a writer as much as I've been a knowledgeable sports guy that could write even modestly okay. I'm sure you know Henry Abbott. You can tell when you read my stuff. Henry is a far better writer. But I was offered a writing job covering football, actually, college and pro football. Because when I was in college, I did some writing for UPI, which was the alternative to AP. There was two UPI. I think UPI still exists in Europe, right? And I got to meet a bunch of people, and they offered me this job writing. And I did write a little bit for them the summer of '87. Then I was offered a JV coaching job by a guy that wanted to teach his team man-to-man. They're very athletic, but he had never coached athletes before, just size. He once had 3 7-footers on his high school team, so he just played zone. So they offered me that job, and I ended up taking it. I worked. It was Ronald Reagan was president back then, and you probably weren't even alive then.
Oh,
And
I was. Oh, yeah.
I had to look great then. I had to work 3 jobs my senior year of college to help pay some of the bills, and I was just tired before I went to school for grad school or taking this job. I just wanted to hang out on the beach. A buddy of mine had a place on the beach, and but then he got a job, so then I took a job. Just because it was sitting around all day with nothing to do in the summer before I was going to make a decision. And on July 6, 1987, I met a super, super hot blonde, which isn't hard to do in Florida, considering I went to school with a lot of them. But I didn't date really any of them. And I liked this girl. I told my parents the day I met her, July 6, '87, I'm going to marry this girl. I barely knew her name. I was not any kind of prognosticator back then, nor an experienced dater. But it took a few months of work, and she agreed to go out with me by October. I decided to stay in town and take the JV coaching job, really just for her. We'll be married 30 years in August, so that worked out pretty well. And I found out that I liked coaching. So I did that for 5 years. I thought I wanted to be a college coach. I did get offered a really nice college coaching job. I actually got offered some jobs overseas because I used to travel out of America to coach some. But I thought that I didn't want to be beholden on some 18-year-old saying yes to the offer of a scholarship. And I had some friends that were coaching in college that were struggling with their marriage, and I didn't want that. My wife was willing to go. So I just started seeing if I could work with players on the side. I used to work a lot of basketball camps, Jarod. Smartest thing I ever did is work basketball camps 10 weeks of summer every summer. My goal was to coach 100 games every summer. My thought was after 10 years, I'll have coached 1,000 games. Between regular season for high school, we did a little AAU back then, not much, but we did like spring leagues and fall leagues, and our team was very, very good. Like mid-major and high-major players on our teams. And our area was loaded with 5-star high-major talent. So I was coaching against these great players when I was 22, 23. And so I got to meet a lot of people. My network exploded accidentally. Like one of my great buddies, Frank Martin, who's the head coach of South Carolina. Like I coached against him when I was 23, and Anthony Grant, the National Coach of the Year. They were on the bench together as JV and freshman coach Miami Senior, the first summer I ever coached in summer of '88. So I met a lot of people, and then when I started maybe thinking about doing some personal development, I really spent a lot of my free time with my players developing their games. I didn't charge them anything. They were my players. And it worked out. They were getting better. We won a ton of games, won a lot of championships. And so I thought maybe I could charge people $25 an hour on an outdoor court. And that's how it started. And no one was doing it back then. And I got to about 75 students of mine. Some of them drove 2.5 hours to come because there was no one else doing it. And that's really how it all started. Just from there, it grew to friends of mine who became agents would send me their players. And then I realized there's a full-time business here. Draft prep, in-season consulting work, as well as off-season work in the gym. And then Chad Ford got me the job at ESPN, and then I can kind of do it all. I covered the games for ESPN starting in '07, and I have my training business. That's how it all began, really.
And that it's an incredible story, right? Because it wasn't the plan, right? Kind of happened happenstance, but you were doing it. It was the love of basketball, right? That sort of kept pushing you further and further. So what are the things that you see when you work out with players that, to the audience and the average lay fan, that they may not understand about the level of commitment and work and skill it takes to, okay, high major college is one thing, mid majors is one thing, then be a pro is one thing, then be an NBA pro is another thing. Like, talk about the different levels and types of work you do. Basketball skill is basketball skill, but there are differentiators within that.
Oh boy, it's an amazing question, Jarod. I can talk for 3 hours. I could write.
I know you can.
I could write eight books on this. I won't. I'll be pretty brief. So I'll start with this story. You mentioned Joakim Noah. No one would think Joakim's a good shooter, right? Everyone remembers the helicopter spin. He gets on it. Okay. So he came down here once during All-Star break. He was recovering from shoulder injury. And my brothers are really big Gator fans. I loved the Gators when I was there. To me, I just root for players. I don't really care about a school. But I loved Joakim because I was rooting for the Gators then, and he's the most selfless guy ever, whatever. So I invited one of my brothers who knows a lot about basketball. He's coached high school basketball. He's coached a lot of mid to high major players now in AAU. And I had him and another buddy of mine who played college basketball come watch Joakim work out with us. And two things really grabbed their attention. I normally didn't invite family to come our workouts, but they couldn't believe how many 18-foot jumpers he could make, considering this guy was not considered a shooter.
Right.
And they were blown away with his intensity. And like the example I'll give, and I have 100, but for Joakim alone, one example was we were working on trail jumpers. Back then, you weren't shooting threes as a big almost ever. Memo Kerr was, a few others. So we were trailing to the 18-foot spot, 18 to 20 feet, shoot the jumper. So we were not trying to get him in great shape. We had a week. So we were just trying to work our way into it. So I would tell Joakim, slow jog to just past the timeline, come back at an easy pace, catch, shoot, do back, let's do 20 of these. Well, he would race back to the opposite free throw line and then race into the trail shot. And I would have to say, Joakim, like, you would not do that in a game. You would not be racing. We're trying to stay behind the basketball as a trail shooter. So if you want to race down there, it's up to you, but don't race back, trail back. You want to let the defense get spread down to the paint, and then you can get your trail shot. And it was very hard for him to do. The level of intensity, the specification to detail. I wrote in my book, Basketball is Jazz. There's two brains in basketball that are really dominant, the science brain and the artist. So the scientist and the artist. The scientist overthinks everything, overanalyzes everything. My job is to try to get more art into it, to understand that you're going to miss and not think about it much. The artist tends to just focus on the art, and you don't want to bother them or distract them with numbers too much.
Right.
The scientist can get down the nitty gritty like you would not believe, where every inch is discussed. I just was on the phone with a client of mine, one of the best NBA shooters that we have. And he just discovered he's got an outdoor court he can get to in his condo.
Nice.
So I sent him clips this morning of some really good, he's also a bucket getter, some really good right-hand finishes at the rim. And I asked him, how can you finish with your left hand if you did the same move to get there? Downhill, full speed, like off the screen. And he gave me the exact way, which is a scoop, he said. So we want to be able to do like a little half hook action. We want to have some options. And it was a 5-minute conversation of the different ways he might shoot a left-hand shot. I was on the phone this morning with a G League student of mine who's a scientist all the way. This other guy's more in the middle. This G League player, I think, is the best G League player in the league. He's an amazing player. Double-double guy, great shooter, great player. And I asked him, I sent him some clips that angered me. One of them was he's 6'10" with a 7'1" wingspan or so, and he's a 3-man for the NBA. In the G League, he plays 5'4". Because it's a G League.
Yep.
So I said to him, I sent him clips of a switch where Jarod Jack, NBA point guard, switched on to him. And my guy initially posted up, his dumbass teammates didn't see it, and he voluntarily took himself to 18 feet and then caught the ball at stepping backwards at 20 feet and then took a fucking 20-foot jumper. So I said to him, I told him, hey, I'm sending you this clip when Jarod Jack switched onto you. Jarod, he remembered exactly the play. I don't know what January. He knew
Right.
exactly. He's like, okay, left elbow. We are at home. He remembered everything. The scientists remembered. I can talk to a retired player about a game in 2007, and they'll remember so much. It's the level of craft and understanding the average fan just has no idea about.
Because you watch basketball, right? And for the average fan, they just see the back and forth, catch, shoot, rebound, run it. Not the 6 plays that led to that back door that got that wide open layup, right? It's sort of like, and it's just your point, right? It's jazz. If 4 guys are playing a different song, and it's like, well, no. Like, we've got to kind of be in concert, even though, right, jazz is sort of different types of sounds. So I'm wondering, as a player development coach, when you talk to your guys, are you literally like, do they come to you and say, hey, here's what I want to work on? Or are you like, no, here's what I see your problems are that you need to work on?
So here's what's great is, and this is where I have a role, is they often will have the bigger picture view, but not the details.
Mm.
They're still kids in a sense, right? My oldest client is 30. So he's not a kid. He's married with kids. Right. I've had 36 and 37-year-olds, whatever. I guess I have one guy's 35. He's not in the league right now, but he might get back in the league. They tend to want big picture, and then I got to give them really small picture. Not that we don't work on big picture too, but yeah, typically it's, hey, I'm having trouble with this. So it's just like going to the doctor. You may think you know what's wrong. You probably don't. There's something else going on that's causing the symptoms that you're seeing. This is the coach is yelling at you for. So luckily for me, and for a long time now, NBA coaches will just play someone else. They don't necessarily fix the problem. My job is to fix the problem and then build on it from there. So yeah, typically I'm the one that has to diagnose the real issue and then fix it.
And then for you, is that a challenge somewhat sometimes because this player has to fit within Coach A's system? However, you're looking at it like, well, but they can do these other things. You have some sort of push-pull there where you're like, okay, you need to really be doing this because this is what the role Coach X wants you to do, even though I know your natural instinct can be telling you to do something else. Do you have that kind of situation sometimes?
Yeah, no, that's never a problem because ultimately they play for their coach. So I always have to work within the context of what the coach wants. The very first thing I say to every player on game day always is, what does coach say? Like at shoot around that morning, maybe a meeting the night before. So I always have to counsel within that framework of what is he being asked to do. I'll never tell a player to shoot a 3 in a game if he doesn't have the green light to shoot the 3, right? So I've got to know what those boundaries are. What I write in my book, if you lead a blind person into a home and then let him go, he will mess up all over the place. He doesn't know anything about the home. You need to walk these players through every bump, every corner, every flat surface, every staircase, right? If they know where everything is, they'll get comfortable. So I help the most. You were on the show when I had Dwayne Casey on. Mm-hmm. Dwayne knows I'm a helper, not a hindrance. He can't necessarily walk every player through every inch of space in that 12,000 square foot mansion that the team. Right. I'll do that. I'll watch them play. I'll ask the right questions. I'll have the players sometimes talk to the coach or an assistant coach. We will make sure we map out that landscape, and then we can just go play, right? Then we can play jazz. Mm-hmm. If you're not sure what you can do, you're in trouble. And some coaches aren't great communicators to begin with, and so it doesn't solve anything. We've got to be the communicator. We've got to approach the subject to the coach and find out what it is he can and can't do.
And one of the reasons why you and I connected, and you touched on that, and why I identify with you so much is I, too, was a coach, not for basketball, but competitive swimming. Yeah. Had athletes make Olympic trials, right? Never been that caliber of swimmer myself, but so much of it, Coach, is about the communication and the psychology, which you talked about, right? So if a guy is in the NBA, by definition, he's one of the 450 best players in the world, right? Because limited spots. So there's a certain level of healthy ego that comes with that. Like, no, I'm really good at this thing, or else I wouldn't have gotten here. How do you deal with that with them about sort of subjugating that ego, right? And working it within, but still keeping them confident enough in themselves that it's like, no, you're not bad. You just need to do this, right? That balance of ego versus what you have to do.
Right. So Just to correct it, not that I think you were trying to be so accurate, but they're among the best 450.
Right, yes.
Europe,
Including
is
EuroLeague and right.
So yes, they're still very special. Either they're really great, or great at one thing, or have the potential to be one or the other. Right, the young guys. Young guys mostly are terrible, but the prospects are there. So the key is, Bobby Knight once said, mental is the physical for basketball as 4:1. That was his quote, meaning it's such a mental thing. Well, I would say confidence is half of that mental battle. And so that swag is vital. I used to always say, my son doesn't have it in basketball. He's a good player. He's going to play in college next year. I doubt he'll get in the game much, but it looks good that he's going to be on a very, very good team because he lives to make other people better, whatever. He doesn't have that swag. It's all my fault for reasons that we can talk to another time. In baseball, he had it. So he can get on the mound in baseball against big-time players and not worry about throwing a ball or walking a kid or giving a home run because he knew he was really freaking good. Same thing as a hitter. He was an amazing hitter. And he struck out plenty, whatever. Like, it didn't affect his confidence. I don't know how that happened, but it worked really good for him in baseball. I've got to do that for my basketball players. They've got swag for sure, but Jesus, the NBA is incredibly good. I have guys in the EuroLeague and Eurocup too. It's hard. It's hard to be good. You're gonna fail more than you're gonna succeed, right? Yep. I've got to constantly come up with ways to help them believe that they've got to believe, even when the facts aren't so great in the short term. So you see right now with this whole virus thing, people are talking about a 3-day average. Mm-hmm. I've got to do a lot of 3-day averages, or it's not 3 days, it might be 3 weeks. Yeah, you've been bad for 4 or 5 games, but look what's happened the last 15 games. That's what I have to do for the scientist. The artist knows, oh my God, I can't believe I missed. Yeah, you missed 15 in a row. He's just one. It's always just one, because they'll make the next 15. The artist is easy that way. The key for us is, for the artist, is say, oh, you might keep missing. You're taking terrible fucking shots. You got to stop taking those shots. That isn't going to work. The scientist thinks the sky is falling all the damn time because he's looking at the numbers. And so my job is to help him. And I've got tricks, and I would argue that I'm a far, far better coach now than I was, a month ago, 2 weeks ago, way, way better than 5 or 10 years ago, where I had some success because I learned from my players all the time. I always say that I need to have a skeleton key. My key's got to work for every player, but the truth is it's a different key for everyone. They're all motivated differently. They're all inspired differently. They all can get knocked off track differently. I've got to try to bring them back in line, and I'm just one person. So I need to have a lot of different skill sets to do that. And over time, I'm 55. I've figured some things out.
No, you definitely have. What was it like that first time you had a pro to work with? I mean, as much as you know the game, there had to be some butterflies that morning, right? Going into the gym, like, this is an NBA guy or this is a EuroLeague guy. Like, I gotta be on. Great
question. Dude, I had some swag when I was on. My assistants would laugh. Like, it's ridiculous that I married such a pretty girl who's also like this amazing person. I would have never thought that. I would never have expected to have the life that I've led so far. But when it comes to this, I know this shit, man. I've worked so fucking hard. I'm not going to ever apologize for that. I don't know how I stayed married because I was gone 10 weeks every summer. And no, I'm stupid. I look back and realize I could have done 8 weeks. I wasn't getting paid squat, by the way. And whatever money I was getting, I pretty much paid to bring my players, who were all inner city kids. I would say, hey, I'll do this, but can I bring a player or two for free? So I made no money. So I could have taken this amazing girl to the beach. I live on the beach, right? We're living 50 minutes away. And I didn't do that. But that came with a consequence, which is I learned a lot about the game. And I dealt with a lot of really smart people. So when I get on the court, like, I know my shit. I know what I'm talking about. And I'm also not afraid to be honest and vulnerable. I'm not afraid to admit, I didn't see that. Let's figure this out. Like, I have no ego when it comes to that. I just have confidence. I will tell you this. It's much more scary. Are you a dad? You're not a dad yet.
No.
So it's like being a dad and you send your child out in the world. When I was helping a player go up against like Dirk Nowitzki, who had 20-footers, like fadeaways, is what he wanted. Like, I never dealt with that before. Like, you can't just give him 20-footers in his prime. And Kobe and LeBron and Iverson. I've dealt with all of that. And I try to give my players on game days notes for the game. And then we always talk for every game. We kind of work through the notes. Okay, what's your team game plan? How you defending pick and roll? What are you doing in ISO? All that kind of stuff. All those questions are asked and answered. And then you give them a game plan, which is where I think most trainers fail, is they're teaching skills but not application. So my thing is skill acquisition and skill application. You have to understand how to play the game. That's what we focus on. I've since learned through all these people that have come through my gym that isn't what typically is happening, and that's a mistake. So I send my players off to the game against these great players, and I'm always like, oh my God, I should have said this, and I had this, and that's petrifying, especially in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Game sevens or elimination games, and your guy is the one guarding their best player or being guarded by. I have one fun story. It was a meaningless game, but Kevin Martin's like my son. Everyone knows it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I had him since he was 19. And the only one guy in the league could really guard him. No one realized. Tony Allen, he destroyed because Tony just fouled him so much. Tony was great. Iguodala was a disaster. Like
he's so good.
Awesome. So one time, Kevin was I forget who he was playing for. They were getting drilled, and Iggy was just locking Kevin up. And then Kevin went crazy in the fourth quarter and just gave him buckets. And Kevin called me right after the game and said, Coach, you'll never believe this, but I saw them talking when someone else was shooting a free throw at half court. It was a friendly conversation. I think Kevin's team came back to win the game. And I said, what were you guys talking about? And because Kevin was not a talker. He just kept his mouth shut and scored, or didn't score. Mostly he scored. He said, Iguodala said, he's like, dude, man, we got to play together. I love playing with you. You play the right way. And I was just elated, as was Kevin. Like, play together. We haven't scored 12 points in 5 years against this guy. We averaged 25 a game, but we never could score Iguodala. And the fact that he couldn't guard Kevin this one quarter, it meant the world to Kevin. It meant the world to me. And then when Udonis won his first championship as a starting player, and he called me, I'll never forget, at 1:20 in the morning. I worked him out before Game 5. The series was tied 2-2. And I worked him out before Game 5. Talked to Shaq before the night before the game. Game 5, Udonis didn't play great. He had been struggling some. But he played great Game 6. I went to the Game 5, actually. That's when Wade had like 36. And
yeah, Cuban nuts that game.
Yeah, he was amazing. Cuban got mad because he got fouled so much. Udonis called me at 1:20 my time, Game 6, saying, first he said he was kind of crying, like, how'd my shot look, Coach? I'm like, man, you're world champs. I was so happy. So those moments don't come too much. That's why I didn't like coaching 5-on-5 enough, is the wins didn't mean a lot to me. I expected to win. The losses were destructive.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd be happy doing that. Because I've had chances to get back into it. I was offered an NBA head job once. My wife and I flew to New York to meet with the owner. It just isn't what I don't think I'd be happy. The money was great, but I wouldn't be happy. And my kids were young. I'm not going to apologize at all for deciding to be around more. I mean, I'm seeing them now every day. That's a little much, but they're going to be gone. They're seniors in high school. So I think I chose the right path for me. But the great moments aren't enough. Of the bad moments are always there.
It's interesting. You hit on something very key there as my last one for you. You know, you talked about being an NBA head coach, it wasn't the right thing for you with your kids being young. And you always, on every pod, everything you do, you always talk about your family. And it's very evident that that's the most important thing to you. Yes, you love basketball, but it is about your family, right? You do that for your family, right? So you can live the life that you want to live. I always wondered about this, maybe not head coaching, now especially because they're getting ready to go to college and they don't need you every day in their lives. Would you ever consider going into an organization? I'm sure you probably got an offer to either be head of scouting or an assistant GM or something in the player development or in that side. Would you ever think about doing that? Or are you good at what you're doing?
So I did have a chance to kind of look at the GM track the same time I was offered a head coaching job. And it definitely wasn't the right time now. I'm really excited. I'm glad you asked me this because my wife and I talked about this. In fact, I never traveled in the summer overseas once we had kids. I went to Vegas Summer League. That was about it.
Yep.
But we had booked, I accepted a speaking position for a week in Italy. The money was great. They were giving my wife her own translator for the week while I was
You're in Italy.
in Italy, right outside of Milan and near Venice, in between Milan and Venice. And I'd never been to Italy. And I said, honey, this is going to be like Kevin Martin bought a team in Australia. They want me to be involved in that. Like, this is going to be our summer gig. Our kids are going to be in college. I'm going to probably take a speaking option or two every summer, then do Australia, maybe a few weeks in Brisbane. Like, you've hung out with me for all this time. I'm going to take care of you now on these things. And of course, that's all gone. And it may always be gone because a lot of these European teams don't have any money right now.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. So it is something I'm considering on management side, probably not scouting, but managing. But I really think True Hoop is a calling for me. I love Henry like he's my brother. I love Judy. Henry's wife Jessica is one of my editors, my top editor, and she's incredible. I think there's something there for us, Jarod, where we can really be a special media company. I helped build. I was the ESPN for 10 years. The only guys
helped build the original True Hoop.
Yeah, the only guys that are longer than me were Mark Stein and Chad Ford, who brought me in. Chad's the one that got me the job there. Then we have brought in Henry. I think we were part of something really special, and I didn't own it. I was just an employee. But I own part of this. I'm part of the foundation. I'm a partner. I want to make it really special. And I think it's, as I said to Henry, like, I could see myself doing this for a long, long time. And then continue to work with kids and all of that and players. And if it doesn't work out where it's going to be that kind of future, yeah, I could see myself doing something as a consultant for maybe multiple teams, one in each conference. I've had conversations with GMs and owners about that. I want to get my kids off to college, which was supposed to be June 20th and 21st. They were supposed to go.
Which who knows when that's going to be now.
Yeah, now I'm not leaving until they do, but I'm going to stick with True Hoop and do my coaching and training, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
And you're very proud of them, and they were. Your daughter was on. Rachel was on True Hoop recently. Where are the twins? Where are they going to college in the fall or whenever?
Yeah, Rachel's accepted a spot at University of Central Florida. They have a school called the Rosen College of Hospitality Management, top 5 in the world. And she really is, my friends call her she's my mini me, much prettier, but she's a very fun, outgoing. I'm a serious guy with coaching, but I'm a fun guy. She is the life of every party without being a clown. Like, she's just a warm person that I told her she's the most talented anyone in my family. She's going to do really well. She's got so many internship options already. She hasn't started her first day of college. And so she's going to do that. And then I'm not announcing where my son's going yet because I've got a head coach. It's a big-time program. He's got academic money, scholarship-wise, to attend. He could walk on. They've asked him to walk on. We visited. He told me, Dad, he told my brother this, I'm making a 40-year decision, not a 4-year. A 40-year decision because I want to work in the NBA my whole life, and I want to see what the highest level of basketball is. So we're going through that process now. He's accepted into school. We met with the team and the coaches. If it goes well, I'll announce it soon, and awesome. My wife and I will cry happiness because we want to be part of something really special. And where he's considering going, I think he's got the best culture in college basketball, and it's a top 5 program right now in the country. So we're hoping it works out. It looks good, and I can just be a dad and just cheer him up. I look forward to those days very much.
Well, that's awesome. Coach, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. 7 Footers, that was Coach David Thorpe. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, you know where to find us: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all that. We're so looking forward to having more episodes with you guys in the future. Take care.
Spent a couple years out here with these raps, trying to have a plan that we made come true. Applied to some jobs, but I ain't hit back. I don't wanna trap, what some man gon' do? Chevy told me come